A PIX11 tradition, March of the Wooden Soldiers. PIX11 spoke with film historian Randy Skredvedt about this classic movie.
My name is Randy Skredvedt, and I write about old show business. A particular interest of mine is Laurel and Hardy. Laurel and Hardy at first were just actors together in the same movie. They weren't really a team, but gradually they had more and more scenes together and they developed their characters, and by the end of 1927, they were an established team. Well, by 1926, both Laurel and Hardy were working at the Hal Roach studios. Now, Hal Roach was a guy who produced short comedies. He made films with Our Gang, whom we know as the Little Rascals. But starting in the early 30s, more and more theater managers were starting to get rid of the short subjects and replace them with a B-movie. Well, this was endangering the future of Hal Roach's studio, since he only made these comedy short subjects. And so Babes in Toyland was really a make-or-break film for Roach.
Why, Mother, what did this mean?
It means, my dear, that unless this mortgage is paid, you will all be thrown out into the street.
Well, Silas Barnaby is one of the key characters in the movie, and even though he was described in publicity for the film as a 68-year-old villain, he was played by an actor named Henry Kleinbach, who later changed his name to Henry Brandon, and he had just turned 22 when he made this film. But Henry told me, when I interviewed him in 1980, I knew a lot of the old character actors, and they were angry at me because Roach had given this part to a young man, because logically one of them should have gotten it. And he said, I didn't have the heart to tell them that they wouldn't have been able to do it because they ran me ragged.
Give 50,000 guineas for the capture of that scoundrel, dead or alive.
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive.
Can't you make up your mind which way you want him?
It was sort of a played production. One day Stan tripped and fell, and he severely tore some ligaments in his right leg and had to be rushed off to the Culver City Hospital. The assistant director, Gordon Douglas, fell and he tore the ligaments in his left leg. The actor who plays Old King Cole, Q.P. Morgan, had to laugh so much and so heartily that he ruptured his stomach muscles. During the production, Hal Roach had to have an emergency appendicitis operation, and the day after the film finished production, Oliver Hardy had to go into the hospital and have his tonsils removed. As Babes in Toyland was being made, there were two short comedies made by Warner Brothers, and those are the first two three-color, Technicolor live-action movies made in America. It was happening just at the time Babes in Toyland was being made, but film stock was very slow, and it needed a lot of extra light. Well, that Babes in Toyland set was so huge, it already needed all the light they could give it. And I don't know that they would have been able to push it any further for color film. So ultimately they just decided that it was too expensive to make it in color.
Just a moment. What is this Pee-wee business you've been spending all of my money on?
Evidently, the Pee-wee game was something that children in England played. And of course, Stan was a boy who grew up in England. And the Pee-wee is just like a little wooden cylinder. And the idea is that you have a stick and Pee-wee's on the ground and you slap it with the stick so that it comes up just high enough so that you can then take the stick and whack it away from you. Stan is very good at it, as you will see in the film. One thing which this version of Babes in Toyland has over all of the other ones, it has honest and sincere charm. It's a fantasy film, but they play it seriously. All the other versions of it play it very tongue-in-cheek. This one, even though it's a fantasy film, the characters are taken very seriously. For example, the scene where Bo Peep's mother is begging Barnaby to not go through with this marriage that Bo Peep doesn't want. She plays it so beautifully. You really care about these characters.
I'll do anything you ask. Work for you, slave for you.
The performances are wonderful. The music is great. The orchestrations are terrific. Laurel and Hardy are very, very funny.
Well, I thought I left you upstairs in the bedroom.
You did.
Well, how'd you get down here?
I fell out the window.
And there is some very impressive, for the time, stop-motion animation with the wooden soldiers. It's very much deserving being a favorite after 90 years. WPIX is very important to the history of this movie because there were many years when it withdrawn from movie theaters, and for many years it was very, very hard to see on television, except for WPIX. It kept the film alive when it was otherwise almost impossible to see.
Continue the tradition with March of the Wooden Soldiers. Thanksgiving Day at 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. only on PIX11.